If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard in Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. This is Rick Del Santo, the professor, if you will, coming at you with the Pro Wrestle Zone. And joining me once again is two-time Hall of Famer, the Guardian of Chaos, Big Daddy. What's going on, man?
Great to be back, Professor. Here on the PWZ, the Pro Wrestle Zone. We had a great time last week covering AEW Dynamite, Survivor Series, WWE. So I'm looking forward to tonight, Rick. And once again, thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. A lot of things have happened since the last time you've been on. The legendary actor David Prowse, who played Darth Vader, has passed away, and he has a professional wrestling history. In the early 60s, he, according to Dave Meltzer, he was a pro wrestler, and and then shifted, even though he never really admitted it, but he shifted into bodybuilding and then got into acting, where he ended up playing the legendary character of Darth Vader.
So a lot of things have happened. You are right about that, Professor, since the last time we were together. Number one, I saw your unboxing with your son. I thought it was fantastic. And now I see you're wearing the Man Scout Jake Manning merchandise.
I spent a little too much on Man Scout merchandise that week. So,
well, I'm wearing the Big Daddy merchandise. I didn't have to pay for this, Professor.
Well, see, you were sponsored. I'm just trying to help out an indie guy, I can't imagine he's making too much out there.
You say that every week, and I noticed that some of your co-hosts in different shows that you're on, you say that every week, and I believe in that too. Support your indie wrestlers, support your indie companies. Go out there and buy their merchandise. These guys are really, whether they're legends like Tony Atlas or people like the Man Scout, go out there and support your local independent entrepreneurs, your local independent contractors. And that's a subject maybe we can get into, Professor, about SAG getting involved, possibly Andrew Yang, political-wise, and making pro wrestlers join maybe the Actors Union, which I've been pushing for. If you've listened to my shows and my podcasts, I've been pushing for this and talking about this for the last 10 years. I mean, I'm no Jesse Ventura. You're no Hulk Hogan. I get it. Back to the 80s in the Union. But this could be something, Professor.
That's been a heavy topic since probably 1987, 1988, around there. Jesse Ventura, obviously, he got stooged out by Hogan to Vince back in the day, and that ended up causing legit heat between Jesse and Hogan for decades. So, that is, it would be a very positive thing, but, Vince, I think it's going to be very hard for him to accept that the business has changed. And especially since they had just dropped out any live events, they are just primarily an entertainment company now, just doing TV tapings only. So it's just a television show at this point. So it is very important that they were
trending.
Yeah,
Professor, I think that's where we're trending, whether it be, I know you wanted to talk about the return of the NWA or the MLW Opera Cup, Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, and we could talk about AEW and WWE. I think, and even NAWA and Fight TV and the independent wrestling, you see that a lot of these shows, because of the pandemic, are turning into studio empty arena taping. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I've been watching Northeast Wrestling has started their own studio show online. It airs on the High Spots streaming network, and I gotta tell you, it's a really good show. You see guys like Richard Holiday, The Haven, the Red Lion, Chris Battle, guys like that popping up in their Wrecking Ball Legursky. It's a really good show so far. What they're doing, they're doing things right to keep their name out there, and that's what's the important part right now. We've discussed this before. Independent wrestling, it took a huge toll with the pandemic over the last 9 months.
I agree with you, Professor, and I'm hoping that you come in deep here, reception-wise. Remember, we are 10 to 12 feet below the surface of the earth here in the bowels of Chaos Corner. So I always worry about the connection and the Wi-Fi. Joe Rogan's bunker's got nothing on Chaos Corner, Professor. I know we're on PWZ, but I just want to bring that out here about the connection. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and you have turned me on to a lot of this, whether it be Fight and the Fight app or Fight TV, or whether it be High Spots, or whether it be the Independent Wrestling Network. I think it's IWTV, pay-per-view, WWN, all these different streaming sites and networks for pro wrestling, I think is pretty invaluable. And if you're a wrestling fan, even in this industry right now, you can see things on live streams and on YouTube, and you know I'm a big fan of YouTube, so
same here.
I have to agree with you.
Yeah, all those apps that you mentioned, all those streaming services, they're invaluable to the industry because they've given people a platform. Back in the day, it wasn't necessarily easy to get television, or you'd get television at like a low-powered UHF station where you'd get probably 3 blocks worth of watchers or something like that. And these guys, you can watch it all over the world with that. And anybody can just be like, hey, we got a TV show now. It's on YouTube. We're airing it on Facebook. We're airing it on Fight. Fight is a huge app and very good. Ever since they came along, they've been very good for the industry with all the independents. And then they don't only just gear towards independent wrestling. They gear towards MMA, boxing. Now you saw the Tyson Jones fight on there the other night, and many other combat sports. And now they're starting to do concerts and extreme sports, such as like dirt bike racing and things like that. So.
You are correct about that. And again, you're the one who turned me on to a lot of these different things, and YouTube is invaluable. And I want to digress and go back a little bit. You started off with the passing, and I also want to acknowledge the passing of Bob Ryder from Impact Wrestling. He was another creative guy behind the scenes who was very impactful and in the business for quite some time. I never met Mr. Ryder, but I've read a lot of his work. I'm very familiar with who he is. So my thoughts and condolences out to Bob Ryder's family and the wrestling community in general, Professor.
He actually was very influential in the early days of the internet and the wrestling industry, as far as message boards and live events and stuff like that. And he was a very important guy. And then he ended up, I think he was involved with OneWrestling.com, which Mike Jeff.
That's where I read a lot of his work, Bob Ryder.
Right.
That's where I actually, and I think I've said this before, I tried to apply for a job with Pro Wrestling Illustrated back to the 80s when you were pen pals and Stu Sachs and everyone who just retired. So yes, even until as recently as before the pandemic hit, I was still trying to get her a job writing for PWI.
It's funny you said that because I've submitted many guest writings and they have yet to publish any of them. So whatever.
Professor,
over the last couple of years,
back in the 80s and 90s, I had a bunch of things published with them.
Oh, really?
Whether they were just letters or op-ed pieces and stuff like that, because I've been a writer for a long time. I like doing opinions and editorials and things like that. And so our thoughts to Bob Ryder and who I want to bring up, since we're starting the show off this way on PWZ, Jimmy Rave, Ring of Honor, had a bad injury to his arm and his left arm due to wrestling injury and letting it go too long.
Yeah.
That's what we do in the world of professional wrestling. He had to have his left arm amputated from above the elbow, Professor.
Yeah, it's very sad that he's forced to retire. But from what I understand, he's going to take on a backstage role with CZW, continue there. But it's very sad. My thoughts are with that guy because that should not happen to anybody. Former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. That guy's been around a very long time. About 20-something years. So it's very sad that that's happened to him. Another one that this might be the last one that we bring up is Dwayne Gill ended up in ICU. He had a heart attack over the weekend, maybe right before the holiday. You might remember him from taking on the role of the Gilbert in the Attitude Era.
Well, Professor, it's we're on the same wavelength here. It's funny that you should mention that. I've had a chance to work with Gilbert before.
Yeah.
We've been in many locker rooms. We tag team together in a special handicap match at one point. We follow each other on social media. I found out through James Ellsworth's posts. So
Yeah.
I know Dwayne personally. We have a bunch of great photos and videos together that I posted
That's
on
great.
my YouTube channel. A great guy, was always in pretty decent shape. So the silver lining in all this, and again, I didn't know Jimmy Rave personally, but I know of him, appears to be a great guy. The silver lining in all this, Professor, and if I could bring the positive vibes, because that's what I do, Jimmy's going backstage, like you said. He is going to recover from this. He will have a creative role. He's a very positive and spiritual person, Jimmy Rave. So thoughts and prayers to him, and then also to Dwayne, to Gilbert, if you will. He will recover from this. I saw a picture on social media of Ellsworth and Gilbert, and they looked pretty good, and I think he'll bounce back. So, Dwayne, if you're watching, and I know that you are, Dwayne, because you watch everything that I tweet, brother, rest, my friend, and God's.
That's right. Speaking of, the National Wrestling Alliance is returning tomorrow night on YouTube, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. NWA will be, the name of the show is Shockwave. Not NWA Shockwave that was out of New Jersey in the 1990s, if you remember that one, which I know you do. And I think, if I remember correctly, didn't you have something to do with that company at one point? I
certainly did.
That's right. They're returning with a new show, and it's going to be associated with the United Wrestling Network, and they're going to be showing matches that have never been aired. I don't know if there's going to be anything brand new recorded, or if it was just recorded previously, but it will, or things that were recorded during the United Wrestling Network's Primetime Live featuring NWA wrestlers. But it's definitely going to feature Nick Aldis, Thunder Rosa, Eli Drake, and Aaron Stevens and Camille are all coming back for the new NWA show. So I'm very excited about that because I'm a huge NWA fan.
Well, Professor, as am I, not only back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then when they turned it to WCW, but when Billy brought them back and it was the NWA Power, I immediately was glued back to studio wrestling and studio wrestling and what Billy's trying to do with the NWA. So I hope they do come back, and it's good to see they're coming back on YouTube. We talk about AEW Dark on YouTube. They're getting hundreds of thousands of viewers. They're writing storylines which lead into AEW Dynamite. They're having 10, 12 matches a night on Tuesday nights. And it's something that needs to be covered, Professor. So I agree with you about NWA coming back on YouTube. I'm happy about that. And I'm hoping we can cover MLW, Ring of Honor, because they're all coming back.
Yeah, MLW has been running, about 3 weeks now on YouTube, Wednesday nights on YouTube. I did not watch last week's. Last week's, I pretty much took the entire week off from wrestling. So the holiday was coming. My children came and visited. I just didn't have the time. But I watched most of last week's AEW today. I enjoyed it. One guy that I really think is going to be a huge star there is Adam Page. And I mean huge star. The Hangman Adam Page. I love that guy. I think he's out there, man. So what do you think of Adam Page?
Well, before we get on to AEW, because you brought something up, and I wanted to touch on it because you reminded me of it, and you're talking about MLW coming back. They've been back the last couple of weeks, and the reason I say that because I did happen to catch the last couple of weeks, and they're in the middle of the Opera Cup right now. They're in the first round, and as a matter of fact, a local boy done good. Roma Trains, Mancini Brains, that would be Richard Holiday, won his first round matchup in the MLW Opera Cup, and now, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and I want to refer back to the timeline. I like to do things organic here, but if you don't have a little bit of notes, we were joking about this pre-podcast here on PWZ. Now, the interesting thing about MLW and Holiday, because we have a local connection in the Opera Cup, before we get on to AEW, is he now faces the winner of Low Key and Davey Boy on Wednesday night. So that's an interesting thing. That's the quarterfinals. Low Key, who I have a personal connection to, and Davey Boy Jr.
Remember. Yep.
Harry Smith. So the winner of that bout on Wednesday faces Holiday in the next round of the Opera Cup.
I tell you, if it's Low Key, I feel bad for Holiday because I've seen that guy throw his kicks. Those are not. Those are very stiff kicks, I've seen him knock out Dan Moff a number of years ago. Legit, shoot, just throwing kicks too hard, and I think he ended up giving him a concussion, like at a Ring of Honor show probably 20 years ago or 18 years ago. But Loki's one of those guys, like you said, you have a connection to him working probably Northeast Wrestling, I presume.
I worked with Loki in the NWA, the NAWA,
okay.
and Northeast Wrestling, and I believe we worked for a group out of Brooklyn. My thoughts on Loki: number one, Moff is a beast, and if you could take out Moff, you're one legit badass. Yeah. I also have a personal connection to Mac and Moff, and we've been able to work together back with Homicide in the days of the early and middle 90s. Well, middle 90s. Unbelievable guys, salt of the earth. I believe, it's my prediction, Professor, if Loki goes over on Davey Boy, I think Holiday has his hands full, and I do not think Holiday, at this point of his career, can handle Loki. With that being said, I believe Holiday can take out Davey Boy if Davey Boy goes over on Loki. Your thoughts?
I think that's very good. Loki's been killing it since joining MLW. He came in, he won that title, the MLW championship, for a while. He's been killing it. He had a really good series, but I mean, Davey Boy, he's still relatively young in the business. He's been involved? Probably 10, 15 years. He hasn't been, man, that's a really good question, because Davey could go over. I mean, it could be a very good match. I think the Davey and Loki match will be very good, but Holiday's in for a match, like a really good match, no matter who he goes up against, to be honest with you.
I think, Professor, just my opinion, I think Holiday matches up better with Davey Boy Jr. than he does with the mixed martial arts of Loki. That's just my opinion.
I think you're right. And I think that could be a hell of a match, a main event caliber match, with those two in the ring.
Well, and then the winner, I mean, all roads in MLW, in my opinion, in the Opera Cup, lead through Filthy Tom Lawler. Okay, I understand that Loki's there and Holiday has advanced, and with the match coming up, to me, because he's already got a first round bye, I believe the road to the Opera Cup goes through Tom Lawler. Your thoughts, Professor?
That's very possible. I mean, yes, I think you're right. Is Lawler still the champion there? Am I correct?
Jacob Fatu is.
That's right.
Because I was just going to talk about. Listen, again,
you're right.
You know that we get our facts up. We watch all kind of wrestling here. Listen,
I get too confused sometimes. There's so much going on in the world.
Yeah. The Contra unit, and listen, unless I missed something, since the pandemic, I believe that Jacob still has the title, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I believe you're correct, because I've only watched one episode since they've come back, so I missed the last two. Yeah, I think that, if they go, whoever ends up in that match with Tom Lawler, there's going to be another one. But if it's Davey Boy and Tom Lawler, you're just going to see one of those old shoot style fight matches. That's Japanese style. Do you get what I'm saying? Like the older New Japan stuff, the older UWF stuff.
Lawler and Loki?
Mm-hmm. Damn.
That'd be something, both men with mixed martial arts.
Yeah,
I think I would take Tom Lawler in that.
I think that you might be right there, but Loki, like I said, he's a very good striker, so that could be the positive in his department for Loki, with those kicks that he's got.
Always remember right now too, they're in the middle of the Opera Cup, but you cannot count out. There's MLW is going to, who knows where they're going. Division. Obviously, the Von Erichs are still the tag team champions. I don't know who's going to come in and challenge the Von Erichs. And, the Contra unit, you have Gotch, you have Kwan, you have Joseph Samael, and Jacob Fatu. Where does the Contra unit go? So even though they're in the middle of the Opera Cup and we're talking Lawler and Davey Boy and Loki, I'm interested to see where MLW goes besides the Opera Cup, because they have a lot of talent, Professor.
They're bringing in a lot of people. I think, who did they just... Damn. I think Leo Rush just signed with them for a few appearances, correct? He's coming in.
No, I just saw Leo Rush on a podcast. Now, is Leo going to Ring of Honor, or is he going to MLW?
He made an appearance on the United Wrestling Network's Primetime Live, and I believe that he was making an appearance in MLW, if I'm not mistaken. At least he signed on for at least one or two appearances. I don't know. Similar to when Killer Cross came in before he got signed to WWE. He just came in for probably 2-shot deal and then left. So that's what I think is going on with Lio Rush. But I do remember seeing it on their Facebook page, like probably a month ago, 3 weeks ago at the most.
Well, Leo's going to end up somewhere. He's a phenomenal talent. And back
I don't think he knows. I don't think Leo. No, there's definitely not. I don't think Leo knows what he wants to do, because after he got let go from WWE, he decided that he wanted to retire and focus on his rap career. And then he said, "Oh, forget that." Then he decided to come back out of retirement and wrestle again. So I don't think he knows exactly what he wants to do. But I mean, the whole pandemic is just fucking with everybody. You know, it's just nobody knows what they want to do with in their career right now, and it's just like it's harder to find work for these guys, obviously. So because there's no live crowds, there's less shows.
It's a valid point, but Leo's a talented guy. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Once this clears up, he'll land on his feet. But I want to go back to your question, because this is what I do, Professor. I am the guardian of chaos. I do tell it like it is, and I'll say that to say this. I'll tie it up like a little bow, and I'll refer back to your AEW Hangman page.
Oh,
That'd
right.
be a nice transition. See, Professor, I don't forget, we bounce all over the place.
Absolutely.
Chaos, I get it, but we always come back.
The show's full of chaos, literally right now.
But I'm a little disappointed, Professor. Where's all the views? We got less than 50 views on our episode.
I added up
between the thousands of people that you know and the thousands of thousands that the chaos knows. Rock.
I promote this shit like crazy. There's going to be a lot of new changes.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of new changes coming up, and it's going to be promoted very heavily. I've making some appearances on other podcasts. People that I know have way more followers. And I'm going to be promoting this thing a hell of a lot more, and there's going to be a lot of big changes coming here. So. You know,
well, I'm looking forward to that. And as I always say, just like in the wrestling business, whether there's 5,000, 50,000, or 5 people watching, the show still must go on. But I'm interested to see, and since we're talking about PWZ, I'm on your show, whose podcast, before we get back onto AEW, we have a lot of notes to go over here. Who have you been on with? And I noticed that you have, whether it be the House of Pain or Barry Horowitz, you have some special guests coming on. Let the fans know, because I'm interested, as is my followers. I have a lot of people following that are watching your show.
Well, this Wednesday evening, I will be sitting down with the Maestro, a.k.a. Robbie Eagle, a.k.a. Gorgeous George III from WCW, USWA, Smoky Mountain. I actually spoke with him today to make sure he was still on board, and he said, "Hell yeah, I didn't forget about you."
Now, is that the Stro?
Yeah, Papa Stro.
Papa Stro. We just talked on his podcast a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
Papa Stro is a great guy, an excellent guy. You'll find him entertaining. Wow, I won't miss that one, Professor.
Yeah, me being this Saturday, I'll be sitting down with the House of Pain, as stated. They'll be returning. They're going to be talking to, 3-time Paradise Alley Tag Team Champions, and those guys hold the belts everywhere they go, and they're about
Here's my prediction. Here's my prediction, and I want you to bring it up that when you see the House of Pain and you have them on part 2, here's my prediction for the NAWA Jingle Brawl 2020. The Hercules Hernandez Cup for the title, all the stars that are going to be down there for Jingle Brawl. My prediction is the House of Pain will capture, whether it's against Storm, Chase Stevens, Storm Daniels, the Slambinos, the Dirty Blondes, whoever it's against. I believe that Nick and Kim Ali are going to capture the North American Wrestling Alliance tag team titles in Daytona Beach. You heard it here, and you relay that to the HOP, because you know why, Professor? It's their house, their rules.
And that is correct. I think you are correct. December 19th, they're coming on to promote the show, Jingle Brawl. December 12th, next Saturday, I'll be down with Barry Horowitz, WWF, WCW legend, Barry Horowitz. And I spoke to former member of the National Wrestling Alliance, Howard Brody, actually, and he's looking to, he gave me a yes, and we chatted for a few minutes. We just need to sit down, confirm a date and time, sit down and chat. So he's coming on.
So here's the future looking into Pro Wrestling Zone. If I have my little crystal ball here in Chaos Corner, you have the House of Pain tag team
Yep.
champions around the country coming on. You have former WWE alumni and superstar Barry Horowitz coming on, and then you have one of the legendary owners of the NWA territories, Howard Brody, all in the wings.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He was very pleasant to chat with, and I'm really looking forward because I know that guy's been in the business for a very long time. And was it last year, the year before, he was working with his new company that he booted, Ring Warriors, which is actually very good. Didn't get a lot of attention. Yeah. I know the TV tapings were held in Las Vegas at Sam's Town. I know TNA or Impact did some tapings at the same building, and actually a lot of companies go to that building and record. So do TV. Ring of Honor did some TV tapings in that same building, all within like the same year. So it's a very nice little venue in Las Vegas. It's very cool.
Speaking of Ring of Honor and Sam's Town, it's a beautiful segue. I know we were talking about Hangman. We still haven't gotten onto AEW, but it's nice to cover Impact and MLW and New Japan and Ring of Honor. So that's a nice segue. Speaking of Ring of Honor, December 18th, their pay-per-view Final Battle. The champions now, I could run them down. Your current Ring of Honor heavyweight champion is Rush. The TV champion is Dragon Lee. The 6-man tag team champions are Bandito and the Mexa Squad. The pure champion, who just won that, as you well know,
Gresham.
Gresham. And then, of course, the tag team champions for Ring of Honor is Jay Lethal, who I have a personal connection with, and Jonathan Gresham. So, unbelievable Ring of Honor. And coming up in Final Battle, Professor, EC3 will be there. The Briscoes, Matt Taven, and then Tony Deppen, who's a big indie star. And then it's just been announced, Mike Bennett will be at Ring of Honor.
I think that he's going to prediction. I was talking to Dan the Beast. He thinks he's going to end up turning on Matt Taven. Those guys were both Northeast standards for a very long time.
Right. And now, believe it or not, and I know that you know this, and I know that your crowd is informed and your co-hosts are informed. Matt Taven, make no mistake about it, especially after all the embroilment with Marty Scurll and the speaking out movement, Taven is running that locker room in Ring of Honor. He is running the locker room in Northeast Wrestling. Him and Brian Hampton. Make no mistake about it.
I've actually heard, I know he is with Ring of Honor, but I've also heard the same thing of Northeast not that long ago either, through a very good source. So.
Now, before we get or kayfabe and AEW, because we talked about this post-podcast tonight. Well, actually, tonight is Monday Night Raw. While we're on the air,
I got it on in the background.
And the big news coming out of WWE, they're moving to the Trop down in Tampa. They're getting out of the Amway Center. They're going down to the Trop. You know that.
Yep.
The next big pay-per-view coming up for them, Professor, if I'm not mistaken, is TLC. And tonight's main event, and we might be able to see it, I believe it's AJ Styles and Keith Lee. The winner will face Drew McIntyre at TLC. I believe Orton and The Fiend and Alexa Bliss will be on tonight. And I know Jeff Hardy and Elias are in a symphony match. So that's what's going on Monday Night Raw.
And this is why
idea.
And this is why I don't.
My notes, Professor.
And this is why I don't tune in on Monday nights because I do have it on the background, probably for the first time in months. It's a real shame because I know we've spoken about this before. People think I watch a lot more WWE than I actually do. That's the other thing.
Well, the only reason I watch it is for journalistic reasons, Professor.
Yes.
We're in the business, we're in the industry, and you have to report, if you're going to put out creative content, a little bit of everything so the fans come back to what you're saying. Listen, I don't like the product. I do not like it.
I know you do. Yeah, I know you don't. One of the things with that is I usually watch highlights, or I do record it and fast forward through a whole 3-hour program. But this Keith Lee and AJ Styles match, those are two top guys.
That's something I want to see tonight.
Absolutely. And I'm telling you, and I've said this many times in the last 2 years, Keith Lee, and I know me and you have talked about Keith Lee plenty of times when I've seen you at shows. Keith Lee is one of the top guys in the last couple of years, and I think he's going to be a gigantic star for WWE and a future world champion.
Oh,
To,
I agree
tonight,
with you, Professor, and I don't want to cut you off here on your own show, and I agree with you, but listen, the creative, you already seen, they've changed his entrance song. They've changed his ring gear.
yeah.
Vince wants him to wear a shirt. He thinks he's too big. The quickest way to kill a star from NXT is to bring him up to the main roster. I'd like to think what you're saying is going to happen with Keith Lee.
Right.
But you've seen any star that's come up from NXT with a buzz, even go back to Shinsuke Nakamura. Where is he? I mean, I can name 1,000
Right.
guys. Bobby
Look
Roode.
at his career.
Let's go on and on.
Look at his career, seeing that you're saying Nakamura. Look at his career between New Japan, NXT, and then on the main roster in WWE. It's a completely different world.
To my point of what I'm talking about.
You're absolutely right.
Look at what's happening with Killer Cross. Look, bar the injuries. Look what happened to Andrade. Look what's happened to Ricochet. I mean, and this is just off the top of my head of a guy who doesn't even like the product. And let me ask you this question, because I think SmackDown is the better of the show. Hey, listen, the ratings show that Raw is drawing 1.5 to 1.8 million. The ratings are plummeting, but on SmackDown, even during the pandemic, they're still drawing over 2 million every Friday night. Do you have any interest? We talked about the Samoan dynasty and the storyline between the Ultimate Usos, Uso and Roman Reigns. Do you have any interest in this Friday night's Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns match?
Is that this Friday or was that last? Oh, that's this Friday coming up, right?
I believe that's this Friday night.
Okay, because I know Kevin Owens was involved in the main event last week, and I don't remember who was it against. Was that against Uso? It was against Uso, I think.
Listen, the notes can't be wrong here, Professor. Well,
wait, not here.
Let me not say that.
Let
me not say that, because you know what Bully Ray said to me at least a couple of times 20 plus years ago. And listen, I am proud of this fucking compliment. I can't say it enough, Professor. He said to me in the locker room, Big Daddy, he said, come here, man. Let me talk to you. He said, I give you 8 spots and you fucked up 7 of them. Because he did the old Dusty Rhodes, Dipsy-Doo, Dunkaroo, grab the crotch, hit me with the bionic elbow, and I wasn't supposed to sell. I wasn't supposed to bump. He was supposed to pick me up with the body slam, the what's up, the whole 9 yards. We talked about this, and I fucked it up. That's where the saying comes from.
Okay, it's supposed to be Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns at TLC. It's from what I'm looking for.
Okay. All right, so at TLC, I am correct that it's going to be coming up. I thought it would be on SmackDown, but TLC. Now, let me ask you another question since you have it on right now. Any interest in what's going to happen between Bray Wyatt, who they have not used correctly, against Randy Orton?
Do you really want my honest opinion on this?
That's why I asked you.
I can't stand the Fiend anymore. And I'm going to tell you.
Tell me what you don't like creatively about it.
Okay, I'll tell you exactly it. When he debuted, against Seth Rollins, that whole entire feud, and they kept making Seth just look like a sissy who was supposed to be the world champion babyface. And then then they put him in the Hell in a Cell. The first match, first off, I don't know why WWE does this. They have matches where the first time the guys meet are in a steel cage. The steel cage was always supposed to be the blow-off match, okay? It makes no sense whatsoever. So the fact that they went in there in a Hell in a Cell.
It's supposed to be the culmination, Professor,
yeah,
of the feud. That's where you're supposed to go.
Yeah. It's supposed to be, but the two of them wrestled each other in a steel cage, or the Hell in a Cell, the first match. The match stunk up the joint, and I thought it caused his character to just lose steam right away. And I could not grasp onto it after that. I know a lot of people love it. I mean, Seth got booed out of the arena that night so much, in fact, that they didn't even bring him out on Raw the following evening. So, and then he turned heel like 2 weeks later.
Well, go ahead, Professor. I'm sorry.
No, and then they turned him heel like 2 weeks later because it wasn't working because he got booed out of the arena.
I consider Seth Rollins to be an unbelievable athlete, an unbelievable talent. And he was really being pushed and going places, but he was never the guy to ever take over for Cena or even take Roman Reigns' spot.
That's the thing.
He's the guy to lead the company. I just don't believe he has that je ne sais quoi, if you will.
I think he's a great He could be a great babyface and even headliner, but he's not the guy. He's not a Hogan, a Flair, a Steamboat, or a guy that could cross over.
He's
And
not a Roman Reigns.
right, that's a guy that I couldn't get behind until he turned heel. You know, pushing him as a babyface was not working, and they kept doing that for about a good 5 years before they just said, "Fuck it, we need a monster heel, and he's the guy." And it works. It works perfectly. I'm not 100% behind the feud like everybody else is, but I do enjoy some of it.
But to me, it's the most interesting going in the WWE right now. The most interesting thing going. So
I'll give you that. I mean,
if I'm going to watch anything live, it'll be the Samoan Dynasty and what Roman Reigns is going to do as a heel right now. But most of it, again, I'm not a big fan. I respect everyone, but you make valid points, Professor, about what's happening and getting behind Roman Reigns and how you couldn't do it, but now you're more into it
once he turned into a heel. Yeah, because and I always thought he worked better as a heel. When the Shield were heels, I thought that he was good as a heel. I thought he was great in that role, but once they turned him babyface, it just didn't work, and they started pushing him, and it just wasn't working. But turning him back heel, it's perfect, and it's more legit and realistic. It seems like it's natural.
I agree with that, and it'll be interesting to see when and if the live crowds come back, how they finally react to Roman. But that's something that I don't know.
I mean, they're not going to
face or when we're going to get to Professor, because they're
piping in. Yeah, no, it's definitely not. I mean, they're all piping in crowd noise, and so it's not necessarily even realistic boos or cheers, because it's just the piping it in, piping in boos, piping in. Yeah.
Whether it's professional football or any of these other things, or watching the Tyson Roy Jones Jr. fight on Saturday night, which was semi-entertaining, and then to see Nate Robinson get knocked the fuck out by the YouTube guy, I thought that was pretty fucking good.
It's been a heavy topic of discussion in this house, I tell you. I don't know what made that guy think that he was going to fight, but he literally got knocked out within a few seconds. His head came off. That was hilarious.
I will say both Tyson and Jones, for being 50 plus, were in good shape. Mm-hmm. They went out there and I think they kind of went about 80 or 90%. So allegedly Tyson got high and smoked weed before the fight.
I saw that.
Now, I don't know if that's the case, but he looked pretty good. And for what it was entertainment value. But it's just, it looked so weird with the empty arena, these games, and the only thing that's being close, even with the Thunderdome and all the fans in there, it's not the same. And that's why AEW continues to bring me back as a fan, because of the atmosphere and the interaction. It's the closest thing to real during this pandemic out of all the organizations. Just seem very weird without the crowd.
Bring a term that you've used several times here, and it's AEW just feels more organic and realistic. Like, it's not like they're not pushing for that crowd noise. It's just natural. You know what I mean? They have Florida's the only state that has regulations where people could attend, right? It's like 30% filled or something like that.
Correct. It's a state that's open the most around the country, along with a few others. The difference that I see, Professor, this is just coming from my perspective, whether it be Impact and what Ring of Honor is doing and MLW now, and watching the Tyson fight, and even sports, AEW has the right connection of whether it be the personalities, the stars, the atmosphere, the TV, the camera angle, the setup, the storylines or the psychology, whatever it is, it's working, even with the ratings. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a sloppy product in a lot of different ways, and different matches and the way they're doing things. I don't agree. I'm not a shill. Trust me when I tell you, as I see a whole bunch of people coming across my timeline right now. I just saw the voice of Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, Matt DeCourt, come across my timeline right now during PWZ, and also Juliet Miranda and Dave, the producer from Bourbon Soaked Live on YouTube, and then her podcast. I was watching them before we came on tonight. They just came across the timeline. Unbelievable. They're from New Orleans. A lot of great stories. A couple of pops. Juliet Miranda, bourbon soaked live. You might even get a little wood.
I'll have to check that out.
It's winter time. You're going to need it for the fireplace. I got to talk about. This isn't a Blue Chew commercial. I'm just saying, man.
All right, back to AEW.
Do you want to go to AEW or do you want to go to Impact? It's up to you two.
Impact, I do have something to say about Impact. I read that Ethan Page has canceled the rest of his 2020 dates because I guess he came in contact with somebody that has COVID. So he is kaput. So I don't know if that's going to affect any Impact, whatchamacallit, TV tapings. If he's going to...
No pun intended. I did read the same thing, that he came into contact one more date, according to my sources, before the end of the year. And again, Access is on tomorrow night, I believe. Listen, Josh Matthews, Don Callis, Matt Stryker. I think it's a pretty good combination of announcers for Impact, believe it or not. Right. They have the Knockouts tournament tomorrow night. Machine Guns against Triple XL. Ken Shamrock has thrown his 2 cents in there. You have EY and the Monster Joe Doring. Obviously, our girl, Deonna Purrazzo. There's a lot of things going on in Impact. Your thoughts, Professor?
Impact is a great company. And they give a lot of guys work when they really need it. Say if they leave one company, Impact definitely helps swoop them up. They're always on top of that. The thing is, and they have great in-ring action. It's the in-between stuff that drives me crazy. That thing.
Well, I know you're not big on entertainment value, Professor.
I'd have to say it's lack of entertainment. I don't know who's right in this stuff.
When I say that, you don't like the outside skits. You want to keep it in the ring. You want to see the action.
Pretty much.
And I'm split up because I also like the entertainment value. I see the value in it, but I lean more towards you. And speaking of Impact, there's going to be 2 men that are on tomorrow night that both competed in the ring at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. A very interesting matchup tomorrow night on Impact as the dashing Chris Bay takes on the chocolate juggalo, Willie Mack.
Willie Mack was there before?
Willie Mack wrestled for Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. I missed that one.
Shane Swerve Strickland and Ricky Reyes, all in the same bout.
Was this with the show... the combination with the Evolve?
This was the benefit show. No, this was not the Evolve show.
No.
Darby Allin and Keith Lee and everybody else worked on with Paradise Alley.
Right.
This was a different show. This was the autism fiasco where the guy ran out the money. Sabu was there that night.
You guys are. They were all over the news. Yeah, they were all over the news for that. I remember.
That night, Willie Mack, Jane Strickland, Ivelisse, Ricky Reyes, Sabu. What a lineup! A Holiday, Matias, the HOP. What a lineup that was at the most dangerous arena in the Northeast, the Anthony DeLungo Memorial Hockey Rink, to where if you're not wearing a helmet, you're going to get hit in the head with a fucking hockey puck.
I believe I was there for a couple shows towards the end before they stopped running there. Man, I'm sorry I missed that show. That must have been right before I started going to shows again, like full time, because
and it's like a small New Haven Coliseum, the hockey rink there, on the shoreline. And let me tell you something, it was jammed to capacity, Professor. Perhaps
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Next to the casino show at Mohegan Sun, probably the biggest crowd Paradise Alley has drawn.
Wow. Speaking of that, Chris Bay, I was at the show that he was at the school at the performance center.
Of all things, a Friday night alley fight.
And the funny thing is about that, he was on a WWE TV the week prior, and I turned around and he's just sitting behind me, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I said, "You were on my TV last week." He goes, "Yeah, I'm on TV again tonight. I got my Impact tryout was happening the following week." So, but he ended up signing with Impact. That guy is that guy is phenomenal.
Listen, Willie Mack is one of the best. He was great in Lucha Underground. And another connection Impact that's going to be on tomorrow night, who also appeared in a Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling ring, as you well know, and that would be the tag team of Triple XL. Big AC Romero also was in the Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling ring, and now tomorrow night we'll be going up against the Motor City Machine Guns with his buddy there, Larry Legend.
Larry D. Are they still calling him Larry D?
I believe so. Look at the roster, and you cover it with the DVD Freak and JJ Sins and the Beast. You cover a lot of impact. I mean, Falaba, Davari, Sammy Callahan, Ace Austin, Eddie Edwards. They just added the Sea Stars. We know they have Taya Valkyrie, Tasha Steeles, Kiera Hogan. I mean, look at what Joe Doring has done. He reminds me of Walter from NXT UK.
Right. Yeah. Well, that guy's awesome too. That guy's another great guy. That he the thing is he doesn't work in the States often because he doesn't want to travel. That's why he's staying in the UK. Or why he signed the UK.
Well,
he
if
refused
they brought
to
him over here, Professor. I think that they would ruin his gimmick. But
absolutely
I like Walter, and also tomorrow night, Jazz and Jordan Grace. Now, we're all Jordan Grace fans. I have a personal connection to Jazz. We worked several shows together. She's competing. It's great to see Jazz back. One of the first ladies of wrestling, a true legend in this business.
I've actually been, I'll let it out, I guess. Been speaking with someone and that was booking her for a little while. She was working with, was it Southwest? SWE, Southwest Wrestling Entertainment.
So.
Yeah. Well, I've been speaking to them, and they were booking her dates, and she's supposed to be coming here. So I'm making an appearance here.
That would be unbelievable, Professor.
Yeah,
really
I've been going back and
an amazing lady.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth with them for a little while, trying to work out the dates and stuff like that. So, and that's another organization that people need to check out. James Beard, a former world class referee, Len Denton, who was the grappler,
of course.
And then they bring in the legends like Teddy Long was there, Road Warrior Animal before he passed was working in there. They just have it. If you watch modern NWA, it's like a compendium to that. They bring in guys like Tim Storm, and it's just kind of connected, but actually connected. It's just, I compare it to the TV tapings are in bigger buildings. It looks like it's like watching NWA worldwide as opposed to the studio shows that they did. It's very good and entertaining if you're into old school territory style professional wrestling. It's really awesome.
Which I am, and again, a much needed viable alternative. And again, we'll get on to AEW. We just put it on the back burner because you know why? Because it's the hottest topic right now. But another thing I would like to bring up, because we talked about a pre-podcast, and I have a history date you're going to be interested in. I'd like to get into the World Tag League that's going on over at Korakuen Hall in Tokyo for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and all the different stars that are tagging over there, and the talent over there for New Japan and that World Tag League has been unbelievable. And have you been following any of New Japan?
I've been watching their Friday night shows out of LA. Not necessarily. Unfortunately, I'm backed up. I have the app. I'm subscribed. I just need to get on top of it.
For that, or Imodium AD, or maybe your wife can give you a suppository.
I'm not. No. Exit only.
Issue with the plumbing,
I need to get on top of it because it's like I said, I've been so busy the last couple of weeks, and there's so much product out there. It's impossible to keep up on everything.
Too.
Yeah, and then the holidays. So. I've got a lot. I got a lot sitting on my computer that I have to catch up with. Work, wrestling related stuff. So a lot of stuff people sent me, shows to watch and stuff. And Japan is getting really hot again. New Japan is getting hot. The Dragon Gate is putting on killer shows. Yes. Noah just did a show for Fight, which I've watched part of it. I haven't finished it yet. All Japan is running on the regular again. So. Japan it's getting to be hot again like it was in the 90s.
Well, I have a lot of fans over in Japan, and I just want to say to everyone over there in the Pac Rim and all my Japanese fans, konnichiwa. Listen to the talent, and I know that since you're watching it on Friday nights, the guys over there that I follow, listen, I love Evil. I think his character is unbelievable. He was the champion at one time, Evil. They also have Tonga Loa, Juice Robinson, David Finlay, Zack Sabre, Jeff Cobb, Yuji Nagata.
Now I'm a huge Jeff Cobb. I'm a huge Jeff Cobb fan. That guy.
Mahalo.
I'm surprised that guy has not gone on a national level in the United States.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Professor. Can somebody help me? What camera angle am I looking into? Can somebody help me here? Okay. Jeff Cobb was briefly, if you remember correctly, in
Mm-hmm.
AEW,
Right
and
prior
then he
to
went off to Japan. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Cobb is. I'm not sure. I think he's tagging with Nagata, but the points leaders for the World Cup right now are Ishii and Yano. I don't know who's going to end up being the champions, but as you said, Professor, New Japan and Japan wrestling in general has always been a hotbed. I've been enthralled with that culture all the way back to Fuji Saito, Toru Tanaka, and one of the first gentlemen I met back in the 70s was Tor Kamada. So
wow,
really go back a long ways, and I've always been fascinated by the Gaijins, and I listened to Del Wilkes on his podcast, so he was big in all Japan, so I find it great.
They gave a lot of work to wrestlers from the United States, always in all Japan. So, I just got to, I know back to Jeff Cobb. I know he had, worked Ring of Honor for a long time, and then his contract expired, and he just decided to stick with New Japan and work. And then he popped up in AEW. What happened to that? As far as he made 2 appearances, that I know. He came out as part of the Bodyguard. It was right before the pandemic. He made the appearance as like a kind of like the hitman for the Inner Circle for like one appearance, and I think he might have wrestled one match after that. Then he's gone. The pandemic hit, and everybody's just. Yeah. So I know I have seen him in New Japan on the New Japan Strong. That's the out of the LA dojo, and I don't know if you've watched that at all. I usually do a Tuesday night review every week. I haven't
caught up on that, Professor.
Dude, I am telling you, that is a great show. Was it Fred Rosser, who was there and young in the WWE, is working there? That dude, completely, he's really great in there. A completely different style. Another guy that's been popping up on AEW Dark quite a bit lately and in Primetime Live, Danny Limelight Rivera is popping up there every week or every other week. That kid's got a bright future ahead of him.
We'll get on to AEW.
Absolutely.
We will. But I just wanted to bring up New Japan because of, the mainstream that are over there that have flourished. Again, Zack Sabre, David Finlay, Juice Robinson, Jeff Cobb. And I'm a big fan of the Bullet Club over there. Tamatanga, Tangaloa. I'm big fans of those guys. Legit badasses. But again, New Japan is a product fans, as the professor says. If you're not watching it, I don't know what the hell you're doing. And I got a bit of history that I want to bring to PWZ tonight.
Please do, yeah.
28 years ago to the day, Professor, 1991, Madison Square Garden for a house show. It probably should have taken place at WrestleMania 8. Vince McMahon, when he was the announcer, and Bobby the Brain Heenan, Hogan versus Flair. When Flair came out with the replica NWA title, they wouldn't acknowledge it. They blurred it out per the paper president, the gimmick of Jack Tunney, the president. But I watched that video today because it was pertinent to your show and for history. Your thoughts and what you remember from that house show in 91, and it probably should have been on WrestleMania, Flair and Hogan.
That's something that people had been talking about since probably 1985 as a match. And then they kind of blew it off. For some reason, they did a couple house shows, and that actually aired on the MSG network, correct?
I believe so. I believe you are correct.
Yeah, and that's probably the only television. So that was basically relegated to the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, and maybe Connecticut, because we got the MSG network in Connecticut. Oh, yeah. So not many.
And of
so
course, WOR.
Yeah.
And we did get the MSG network, and then, of course, they cover it on all the local news stations. I missed that when they used to go back to Warner Wolf and, go to the videotape.
So one thing that I got to say about that is that that is a match that should have taken place at WrestleMania. It could have been the biggest match of the decade if promoted properly.
Now, am I right, Professor? Is 91 WrestleMania 8? Am I off on that? Listen, I'm a lot older than you. I know all the history.
I'd have to sit here and, I'd have to sit here and count it. I think
subscribe, comment in your section. Help the people to comment.
Yeah, please comment if anybody does know that. You might be correct on that, but they apparently Vince was just not happy with the way it reacted. The crowd reacted, and it didn't. I guess live But I mean, he didn't test it. I think Madison Square Garden, that was the place where Vince always tested gimmicks out or tested stuff, because if it didn't get over in New York, then he said, "Fuck it, I'm not doing it." So I don't know if it was like a bad reaction that night, because I don't really recall. That's 28 years ago. You watched it today. How was the crowd reaction to that match?
First off, the crowd reaction for Hogan was tremendous. When Flair came out, it wasn't bad too. I mean, again, the historical value of it was because it was Hogan and Flair in the Garden on a house show when it probably should have taken place at WrestleMania. And from all the years of the NWA versus WWF and the super matches, or whether it be Backlund and Inoki and different guys of Harley Race and different people.
Harley and Backlund and
Jerry the King Lawler and Von Erich, all the different people that defended interpromotional titles. So I think that was the significance, and then it being blurred out. And I believe that's one of Flair's first appearances. And the crowd, listen, 20,000, 22,000 is a sold-out show back then. So to watch it, it actually gave me a little bit of chills. That's when Hogan was Hogan. That's when wrestling was still pro wrestling. And speaking of that, Professor, your thoughts on the whole, because it's coming across my timeline as we talk, and it has the last couple of days, and I know that you're into this. The manager of China and the whole Hall of Fame incident with her and Vince saying, "Hey, if you don't pose in Playboy, I'll put you in the Hall of Fame," and then her untimely death and how much she was beloved, and now they're coming out with a documentary, and I hear Dark Side of the Ring has passed on it because it was so emotional. Your thoughts on China, a true legend in the business?
I heard there was another reason why that it was getting pulled from Dark Side of the Ring.
Tell us, we're all fucking waiting.
I'm trying to remember exactly. I think it had something to do with the management. Not necessarily. I think it had something to do with money, to be honest with you, and then them just pulling it, which would make sense. But honestly, that's a documentary that should be made, and it should air, especially with Dark Side of the Ring, because those guys do tremendous work. They really do. The two seasons that
they paint it in a pretty good way. They tell an unbelievable story.
Right.
You're right.
They absolutely do. They got really great guys and they always seem to hire or interview the correct people. You know what I mean? It's not just some guy that's like out there looking for money. It's somebody that's actually connected.
Somebody pertinent to the story. So
right.
I agree.
That could be. That could also be.
I wanted your thoughts on that because it's very controversial right now.
That could be a WWE stoppage. As many years as WWE did not want to do anything with her, they're the ones that pretty much got her into Playboy. Because the WWE, at that time period, was she in there twice, or was it Sable that was in there twice?
Sable was in there, as was the
China.
other beautiful blonde. China was also in there. Sable was in there. Christy Hemme was in there.
Right.
The other blonde that was long before Barbie Blank. Tori Wilson was in there with Sable.
Okay.
Who I'm thinking of. They even had a couple of WCW Nitro girls in there at one time. So you're right. It was very passe and very chic and in vogue, I guess you can say, for stars to be in there.
I don't think Vince would do something like that today because he wants his product to be PG. He wants the advertisers in there. I don't even know if I'm getting off the subject. I don't even think I'm on the right subject. I know. I get confused and then start talking about something different.
Well, Professor, I'm as confused as a baby at Hooters. Think how confusing that is.
So they end up, I think that they might want to make it because do they own her name, the China name?
I'm sure they do. And listen, China right now, it's a sore subject politically and in the world. Fuck China. How about that? And I don't mean Joni Laura, although back then I probably would have. No disrespect.
It's quite the looker.
I'm just saying. Yeah. I know. We're getting a little off topic here. Maybe we can get onto the
for a change.
You wanted to cover first.
What was that?
The floor is yours.
What was it that I wanted to cover? Because I'm all over the place anyways. AEW. Basically, I think I covered everything pretty much. I was just talking about Adam Page.
The war is here, Professor.
Yeah.
The war is here, leading into the Road to Winter, which debuted tonight on YouTube. I will watch AEW Road to Winter. And listen, the war is here, as Moxley said. Rick, you touched on some of this, Professor. Coming up this, just in a couple of days, Moxley and Omega in the main event.
That's
Your thoughts? I can't believe it's going to be on regular TV.
Free fucking television. They're giving that match away for. I can't believe it. I honestly can't believe they're giving that match away for free.
I mean, that's enough said. Moxley versus Omega, you could put that on for the whole 2-hour show, and I would be interested in that. And it's also interesting tag team match. And then I want to hear, as a historian, your breakdown. Willie Hobbs is teaming up with Cody Rhodes. Willie Hobbs and Ricky Starks, Team Taz, going against Cody and Darby, which I find to be an odd tag team. I like what they're doing with Team Taz. Hobbs is raw and green. Starks is the same way. So I like the concept. Also,
Starks?
Y2J, Les Champions, so to speak, from the Inner Circle. He will be going against Kazarian tomorrow night. There'll be a lot of people. I think Lance Archer and Eddie Kingston. I'm not sure. Your thoughts?
What is your opinion is going to happen in that world title match, the Mox and Omega? Do you think it's Omega's time to actually step up and be? You don't think so? I want to know who's going to uncrown Moxley. It's been almost a year, right, since he's had that belt now?
I personally don't think they should take it off Mox right now. They have a lot of momentum going. They just are trying to change Omega over to his cleaner gimmick.
Yeah.
It's just starting to build momentum. I could see Moxley feuding with a whole bunch of other guys, whether it be against Lance Archer or Cage or other guys that he can go up against long before that he can go up, and he may have already, long before he can lose the title to Omega. Then you're transitioning your titles too quickly, with the exception of the heavyweight title.
That's always been a problem. That's always been a problem for me when they're transitioning too quickly. I think Omega's not going to get it just yet. I think he will get that belt at some point. His character,
too early, Professor.
Yeah,
I think it's too early right now.
Do you realize that his popularity is not as great here in the United States as it was in Japan? It's not delivering the same way. So
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by that.
It's a different culture.
Jericho doesn't really,
different culture.
I'm sorry. Omega doesn't really resonate here yet, Professor. I agree with that. He doesn't resonate with, and there's no live crowd.
Right. I mean, even before. But the people that do attend AEW shows are guys that know who Omega is. You get what I'm saying? From Japan. That's another thing, is like Jericho's character in Japan during this time is a different character, two different crowds. You know what I mean? He'd go out there in Japan wearing the makeup and coming out. He comes here, he's a different character. He's Le Champion.
Question.
Yeah.
The whole MJF Wardlow joining the Inner Circle and the whole Hangover parody, a lot of people didn't like it. I know you didn't like it.
You know I did.
Semi-entertaining. You got to remember when I say that, whether it was the Frank Sinatra vaudeville thing, whether it's the Hangover parody, whether it's been cinematic matches, whether it's back to prime time and Tuesday Night Titans. I like the entertainment value of it that way. That's not what draws me in, but that's what brings me back to the day. There was always an entertainment value to it. And to me, it has a place in there for entertainment value. Generic, like Ring of Honor, which is, you notice, has been changing it up. That's just my own personal standpoint. But I agree with what you're saying. And to my point, since Dave joined, is there a little luster taken off Jericho, and now you have him against, no disrespect to him because he's qualified and well-versed, but Frankie Kazarian? Where are we going with Le Champion?
Kazarian's one of those guys that was always around. You know what I mean?
Like Christopher Daniels.
Yeah. He was not one of those guys that would get over on a national level, or reach superstar status. He was just one of those career mid-carder type guys. No offense to the guy, because he's more than capable of carrying on a good 30-minute match against a very competent opponent. What was the question again?
We were talking about where Jericho's going,
where Jericho,
and now how he went from being in main events and going back and forth with MJF to now Frankie Kazarian.
Jericho, was the luster taken out of the Inner Circle?
Off of Jericho, basically.
Off of Jericho. Yeah. It's I think it's true, but I also think that Jericho's at that point in his career. And I've discussed this with Dan and DVD Freak on the show before, that Jericho's at the point in his career, he doesn't care what he does anymore.
Well, he's there
because
to give the rub.
exactly
I
exactly.
understand that.
He put over Orange Cassidy of all people.
Made him into a star.
Right. Did I agree with it? Not necessarily. You know, I'm going to tell you, I did not like him at first, but he grew on me a little bit. And then I found out a lot about his history. Now I found out a lot about his history, working with Chikara and being a fire ant in the colony. And I'm not sure I think you probably worked with some of these guys.
I've worked with Mike Quackenbush
exactly,
several times.
So I feel like, when he would Quack, or the guy would bring in Quackenbush and the colony for the Wrestle Jam events and stuff like that. So I had no idea that was Orange Cassidy. Obviously back then I didn't, because he wasn't in existence then, but I find it kind of funny. So it's just like, then once I found that out, I kind of just gave him a lot more leniency, because I was like, oh, I know that he knows how to wrestle, and he's not some jerk off.
What brought my attention to Orange Cassidy, besides his background with Chikara and that, knowing he was in the business for a little while, what really started to sell me on him was the live crowd reaction.
The reactions, yes.
The pop that this guy would get. And I'll never forget when he tried the gimmick on Pac. That's what me on Orange Cassidy. He did the kick, and then there's Pac. He's a beast. He's in incredible shape. That started selling me on Orange Cassidy. And then when I saw Orange against Cody Rhodes and then doing the crazy, insane drops that he does, and I started to appreciate him more, although that's not my type of wrestling.
It's not my style either.
Cassidy much more.
It's not my style either. Yeah, absolutely. I watched him in the indies for a bit with that character in Beyond and a couple other shows. And I was like, it just didn't resonate until I started seeing him work with the bigger crowds in AEW. Then I was just like, maybe he wasn't that bad, especially when I saw him working with Cody or Jericho. And like I said, Jericho's at the point, he doesn't care anymore. He's there to help give the rub, put people over. And I think the whole MJF Wardlow joining in the Inner Circle, I think at some point Wardlow is going to end up turning babyface. That's just, I've seen that coming for a very long time.
He's going to be a big star. I'm a big fan of Wardlow.
I think he's got the size.
I like everything about Wardlow.
He's got the size. He's got the look. I think it's just going to eventually happen. He's going to turn on MJF. Whatever happens to MJF in the Inner Circle, I have no idea. He can't be part of the Inner Circle forever, because it just isn't, he was in there because of a stipulation. Right.
They're going to have to break that up sooner or later.
It's going to be difficult on how to get him out of there. That's the thing, because he's in there because of a stipulation, basically.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, no.
On the spot, Professor.
Yeah.
Omega or Mox Wednesday night?
I'm going to have to go with Mox. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to go with Moxley, because I just think it makes more sense. Like I said, I don't think Omega's necessarily ready, and he isn't completely over in the United States like he was in Japan.
I'm going to agree with you there per our conversation. It's not going to be a clean victory tomorrow night.
No.
First off, since I've been on Pro WrestleZone, a couple guest episodes and things that we've talked in person, that shows I seem to be, and this is pro wrestling, I seem to be wrong on every prediction that I make. I don't think it's going to be a clean win. That's very possible.
Very possible. I don't think I'm ever right anymore either, because it makes me feel like I might be out of touch. Maybe I'm just not one of these young kids that follows it. The way they follow it. They follow it differently. You know what I mean? Like the IWC nerds.
40 demographic.
Yeah, the IWC nerds.
It's a beautiful transition, Professor.
Right.
Because I'm going to talk about that quickly here. Rankings over the last couple of weeks, ratings, because I happen to have them here.
Okay.
This week, NXT finally beat AEW for one of the few times, and it's because of the holidays. 712,000 to 710,000 by only 2,000. But I'm sorry to bore you and yawn you with the ratings, Professor.
No, not you.
AEW in the 18 to 49 demographic, 7th overall. NXT 18 to 49 demo, 25th overall. AEW went from almost 900,000 the previous week down to 710 because of the pandemic. Because of the holidays. SmackDown 2.3 million, Raw 1.8, considering last week they were at 1.69 million. I like to throw the numbers out there, and the only demographic that the WWE consistently wins is the 50+ demographic. Believe it or not.
I think it's because, and Alvarez has talked about this before. It's like people are comfortable with that product. You know what I mean?
As a
It's
guy that's
what
over
they
50,
know.
I am the over 50 demo god.
I'm not that far behind you.
I don't understand how people in our demographic, and I'll say 40 plus, I don't understand how you can enjoy the WWE product. That's just me. I really don't see it.
Like I said, I know a lot of people that cover. Somebody that we know does a show, and they primarily cover that trivia in the Nugster. They primarily talk to.
I hope the Nugster. And speaking of that, and I hate to cut you off.
That's good.
I hope we were giving our well wishes to a lot of people earlier, Gilbert and Jimmy Rave, and the passing of Bob Ryder and certain people that have passed in our industry, even the great Diego Maradona from Soccer Star. But I'd like to give my thoughts and well wishes to the Nugster. I know he was battling some health issues and he was hospitalized for a little while. And I know that we're all pretty close in the podcast community. So I hope Mr. Trivia and the Nugster are watching to Pro WrestleZone. And I know they're a big fan of yours. So my thoughts and props and shout out and well wishes to the Nugster.
That's right. That's coming from both of us. Nuggy, I hope you feel better and praying for you. He, I talk to Mike several times a week, and they cover primarily WWE, and then they'll talk some indie stuff, whether it be Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which is a new company that.
Is that the Top Rope Report?
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Trivia is the Top Rope Report.
The Top Rope Report. I've been on there a couple times. I was just on their 300th episode, and I felt gracious for letting them, or for them inviting me for the 300
episodes.
Yeah, it's crazy. They've been going for a long.
That I love them both, but they're both pencil neck geeks. It's not bad. Trivia has the brain of a dehydrated baby. You know that, right?
And Mike's come on here a few times to help me do. He's been like a last minute replacement for guys if late at night after pay-per-views and stuff. So they do cover
Trivia, Mr. Trivia, salt of the earth, and he knows the business.
Yeah, he does. A really good guy. These guys are always fun to listen to, and they're entertaining.
Very entertaining. A quick question, Professor. How many minutes in are we? Because we don't like to go too long.
1 hour and 11 minutes. So we'll probably wrap it up shortly in the next, however much.
I'd like to throw this out as something because it's very controversial, and I'm going to transition into this because Vince and third parties and Twitch and streamers and gamers and cameos and people supposedly for the Undertaker paid
$1,000, and I've seen people have paid for that shit. $1,000. I wanted someone.
He sold 30.
Yeah, that's a lot. I wanted David Ortiz. I want someone, and then I looked at the price. It was like 500 and change. I was like, I'm sorry, David. I love David Ortiz. So, that's way in hell.
Vince is doing this because he wants every last dollar. But speaking of that, and it's not really related, but it is cameos. And I want to throw this at you because you're a historian, and this is something that I call side slammers. The 10 best or halfway decent sports star cameos in pro wrestling.
Let's hear this.
We'll go through a top 10. I'm going to throw them out here. I want your comments. I've been doing a lot of research. You know that I pump out, 2 or 3 shows a week now on Chaos Corner?
Yep.
So, fans, and I know we're on.
And by the way, there will be a link in the description of this episode. Please go check out Chaos Corner on YouTube. Go follow Big Daddy on Twitter as well, at Big Daddy GOC.
And the GOC stands for the Guardian of Chaos. I greatly appreciate that. And don't forget to follow my boys over at the show. And that's at Mario_Chaos. And if you're not following them on Twitter, they're there to put you over. I don't know what the hell you're doing. They're there for content creators to put you over. So follow at Mario_Chaos, my boys at the show. Hit me up on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Gab, on Parler, on Rumble. I'm on all fucking social media platforms. But YouTube, we're trying to expand Chaos Corner. I'm on 2 or 3 times a week. There's hundreds of classic footage and videos of all the stars. I appreciate that, Professor. Back to this top 10 list, and we'll wrap it up here. I can't thank you enough for having me on. I want to say
always.
Here we go, and you'll remember these. I'm going to run them out. Most of them are WWE
This is the top 10,
and
you said.
WCW.
You said top 10.
10. Not in any particular order, and maybe we can quickly rank them.
Okay.
Saturday night's main event, the guy who knocked out Mike Tyson back then, and we'll never forget.
Buster Douglas.
James Buster Douglas. WCW at Sturgis, Karl Malone. Bob Uecker at WrestleMania twice. Dick Butkus. William the Refrigerator Perry, both on WrestleMania 2. Who could forget Dennis Rodman at Sturgis in WCW?
Yep.
Obviously, the legendary Lawrence Taylor from WrestleMania.
I was there.
Billy Bart, we were there at Hartford Civic Center. We're going to talk about that. Billy Bart in WrestleMania 1.
I remember him there too. Yeah.
We talked about Buster Douglas. Mike Tyson obviously was at WrestleMania. And then how could you forget Pete Rose? So give me your thoughts on those guys in any particular order and what stands out to you. You said you were in Hartford for LT.
I just find that's the top 10 list of cameos.
That's
Is that what you said?
Top 10 list of
for pro wrestling
by stars or decent appearances.
Okay.
Can you think of some others?
There's not many wrestling related in there. It seems like it's very bizarre.
Were part of either
right, they were at
or
some
WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And listen, Lawrence Taylor, Dennis Rodman, the Refrigerator, Karl Malone, they all actually got in the ring and grappled.
You're right, they did.
And Jay Leno too.
That's true. I think he got Hogan in an armbar.
I mean, there's other ones that we're missing. I'm sure, but Rob Gronkowski, and of course, we didn't even touch on NXT Takeover that's coming up. And look, right now,
we can get to that before
Pat McAfee.
We'll get to that next, we'll get to that in the next episode that we record, because we definitely have a lot more. We're going to be working together a lot more. So we got way more to talk about every week. And when's War Games? That's a couple weeks from now?
War Games is coming up in a couple of weeks. I believe it's towards the end of the month. They have NXT Takeover, and then War Games is NXT, and then that leads you into TLC.
Right. All right. So we're definitely got to cover that prior to that coming.
Don't forget, Ring of Honor's got a pay-per-view coming up.
Ring of Honor. Does New Japan have something?
Jingle Brawl is coming up on Fight
TV.
We're
going to be doing a whole episode on that NAWA.
Listen,
Trust me.
Even though right now I've been fired as commissioner from the NAWA.
Well,
I've been banned. I've been barred from ringside. I've been thrown off the fucking website, thrown off TV. I am no longer the commissioner for the North American Wrestling Alliance. I've been barred.
Let's talk about that for a second. What brought that to fruition, the firing, if you will, if you don't mind?
First off, you can't fire someone who resigned. That's number one. With all due respect to the Godfather, Tony Capone, he was great to me for many, many, many years. He used me as a manager. He booked me for a lot of shows. I took over for Bruno Sammartino, worked with Bret the Hitman Hart. Many, many legends, big shows for the Slam Jam tour, brought me back in for this resurrection of the NAWA back with a vengeance, and things creatively and contract-wise just didn't work out. I felt like I'm going to be honest, I'm going to pull a shoot. I don't really give a fuck. I don't have any shoot with Tony. It is what it is. It's the business, and I understand that. He even, at social media, it is what it is. He made a lot of promises. He's a man of his word. He does big things. He's going to do great with the NAWA. He's got a lot of stars. He's got a lot of people helping him. But creatively, we couldn't get on the same page. Contract-wise, we couldn't get on the same page. I also believe in my heart of hearts that he wanted to maybe move on with some younger, less experienced talent. And instead of coming out and telling it like it is, like I do, he always supported me and offered me a podcast and my own show, and supported me on Patrick Dino Costa, the Patrick Ryan Show. So I can't thank him for enough, and offered my own podcast for NAWA Weekly. But it just didn't work out contract-wise, creative-wise, and we had a parting of ways. No heat, nothing personal. It's just business, and who knows, the doors are always open. Maybe I can come back someday as the commissioner, but as of now, he released me, but I resigned before I was released. But hey, no heat here with me. You know how I am. It is what it is, man. It's the business. Nobody knows that better than I do. And I'm not offended. I just want people to be straightforward with me. I don't care who you are, what organization I've worked for in the past, who I'm associated with. Just come to me and tell me to my face. It's okay. It's just business. Show me that you're supposed to be my brother. A lot of people use that term of brother in this business, and my brother, and I've known you for this long, and all that. And I guess maybe when it comes down to it, back to back against the wall, it is true. But you find out when your phone stops ringing, and when you're not pertinent, and you're not volunteering, and you're not doing something for people, and different things like that. Did we go off, or we're back? That technical, again, I tell you here at Chaos Corner, we're below the bowels of the earth here. So with all that being said, you find that sometimes creatively and business-wise, that's what happens. And the people that call you brother, sometimes it's not always what it appears to be. And again, I have no heat with everybody. I love everybody, but I'm just done like it is, Professor.
No, I understand that. I've seen a few things here and there pop up on the
I wish everybody success, whether it's Paradise Alley, North American Wrestling Alliance, Patrick.
I know
Ryan,
you do.
You know how
I know you do. I know you very well, and I know how you are. But I've seen some random things popping up on my Facebook feed or my Twitter about the NAWA, and it's not always positive. I'm going to be honest, but I'm going to support it either way. You know,
hey, listen.
Some of my friends are working there,
and Tony Colon has released me, so to speak. I'm still going to be there to support it. I'll be watching it.
Yeah.
Listen, that's just the business, and I understand that. But again, don't use the term brother, blow smoke up my ass, make promises, and this isn't directed at Tony or Dino or anybody else. Just do what you say you're going to do. Show me the interest. Make me feel like I'm wanted and that you want me there. That's all.
Right.
Simple.
And they got a big show coming up, and they keep announcing more and more talent.
It's going to be a great show. I don't know about the live attendance, but the talent and how it's going to transition to fight into TV and then their weekly show, I think it's a can't miss. Live event wise, it's going to be a disaster.
I think so, and I think that's pandemic ridden. I don't think it's anything to do. I don't think it has anything to do with
nothing to do with the talent or promotion because this guy is sinking thousands of dollars into it.
And I'm really looking forward to it. We're obviously going to be talking to it when it happens. And speaking of which, I know we mentioned it at the top of the show, the House of Pain, future NAWA Tag Team Champions coming on the show this weekend for the second time. I'm really looking forward to that one. Those guys are great guys. Great guys.
I'm looking forward to seeing those guys. It was rumored at one time that I was actually going to manage the HOP, so I wish them nothing but luck, and we would have been a great match together.
That would have been something else. I tell you, with your talent and those guys, oof, man, I tell you. All right,
thank you, Professor. I appreciate it.
Of course. Once again, before we get out of here, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
I'm pretty easy. I'm on all social media platforms. And again, the most active one where you can get in touch with me is at Twitter, and that's at Big Daddy GOC. And then, of course, on YouTube, and then my boys over at the show. And then I'm really exploding over on Parler. You want your freedom of speech. You want to get off all these different censorship sites. That's the place to go. And if I can't implore you fans, follow me, follow all the content creators. Let's support each other and put each other over. Stay strong for your family, strong for your country. Let's all stay together. It's the United States of America. And if you don't like it, get the fuck out.
All right, everybody. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, at the Rick Del Santo. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share our YouTube page, Pro Wrestle Zone Podcast. Go like our Facebook page. It's brand new. PWZ Podcast. Share the fuck out of it and invite your friends. All right, everybody. Take care.
Don't you dare miss it. Blah.